Welcome to our second panel of the day at Create the Rules Catalyst Connect. I'm Marisa Lowen. I'm joined on stage by a fantastic panel of business leaders. I referred everyone to business thought provokers earlier today, and I think that is definitely the case for who's on board today. AI make Beatty title because I can. I did not use any form of AI to come up with that. I used my little noggin. I created it, but I definitely am excited to hear what everybody has today. We're joined by Alice has her whole AI generated picture on the stage. So we already know maybe where Alice is on this side, but I am curious to hear from everybody on the stage. Please introduce yourselves. We'll start with Briar and tell me just, are you on team AI or team not I?
Oh, well, I am definitely team AI.
Okay.
And so the ones that I've used primarily lately are Midjourney, ChatGPT, and also I'm starting to play with the new Notion AI generator, which I recently got access to. It's not quite as good as ChatGPT, but like many of the other word generating ones, it does different things. So
yeah, and just give us a little bit like what's your business and how is AI significant in it?
So I realized this morning after my introduction that I need to rewrite this damn thing. I was kind of hoping to skate past with that one, but clearly I'm not going to get away with that.
No, we
I am Briar Harvey. I am the System Switch. I am the founder of the Neurodiversity Media Network, which is a bunch of accessible podcasts with video and transcripts, which I use a lot of AI to generate, right? All of those things are created for me, and I pull them together in a way to make it so that my stuff is accessible to the user as possible. And I think that is why I'm so gung-ho about it, and why it's so important to me that we talk about the potential growth of AI.
Nice. Alice, little tiny bio, and is AI, are you on team AI or team not I? And yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Alice Merriam. I am an audience development and virtual event strategist. I work with small businesses and organizations to create connection capital with meaningful audience engagement and growth. Events like this one, like virtual events like summits, conferences, and challenges. And I will say that I'm with Briar. I'm Team AI. I like having fun with AI. I think that in the hands of good, that AI will be good, just like anything else. If it's in the wrong hands, it could be used for not good things, but in the right hands, it can be used for good things. And I'm all about good things.
Cool. Jessica.
Hey, my name is Jessica Jackson, and I am a speculative fiction writer. I am currently working on a 3-part trilogy. And the reason why AI is important to me is because the greater conversation involved in my narrative fiction is regarding the conversations surrounding AI, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrifying, all the good shit. And essentially, that's why I'm here today too, is to be the voice of dissent in a room of optimism. And yeah, but also I'm also pro AI, don't get it wrong. I'm pro AI, but I border on different conversations happening in multiple different places. So
Nice.
I would say it's a little bit more broad spectrum than business, or I'm kind of all over the place because researcher is secondary to writer. That's
Nice.
basically my MO.
I like it. Veronica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica Jans, founder and CEO of Business Laid Bare, and we help early stage and growth stage startups create orgasmic operations so that when their venture goes 50x, they're completely prepared to handle that growth and demand with immense ease and sustainability. So I am on team AI with an asterisk.
Ooh.
And I feel like there's going to be a lot of conversations around this because it's not just a blanket yes or no answer, but for us, and I think me personally, it's like, can AI be used with integrity? And if the answer is no, then that's where I am not pro AI. So that's the lens that I'm approaching this conversation with, and also how it can help with effectiveness and efficiency. But we'll talk about that.
I love it. Of course, I am Marisa Lowen. I am the chief strategist over at Create the Rules Catalyst and createtherules.com. And I'm also an asterisk. I like the nuance. I like the kind of the developing story. I use AI definitely for a bunch of accessibility needs. I also use it just for like shenanigans and just to bring a little bit of levity into our lives. I'll just say the flat cat. Also,
Cheesy keto chicken.
Easy Keto Chicken song and poem. I can't wait to release that poetry book on Amazon later on this year, Ode to the Cheesy Keto Chicken. If you want that story, you got to join the Catalyst. But I also, Jessica will probably want me to talk about the accidental cock pick that I got from Midjourney, and that is a sight to behold. I'll tell you that. And I'll leave it there. So I am excited to have everybody on here now. We don't have anybody that is absolutely no AI, not I on here, but I think this is an interesting, and maybe that's a fault of mine, or maybe that's just I stacked the stage. But I think that everybody on here is going to bring a little bit of the both sides of it, because we are actively working with people who are afraid of AI, who are hesitant, who are AI curious, but not yet stepped into the realm of it. Also, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what AI actually is, because there are certain forms of AI dominating the news right now. And a lot of people don't realize that they've already been using AI for maybe a decade or more actively in their lives and business, and could be more than that, maybe even 20 years. I know some of the systems I use definitely have AI built into it. It's been coming for a while. So one of the things I want to talk about here, and just jump in, I'm not necessarily going to point fingers as we go through here, but if you got something to say, go for it. But I want to talk about how do we feel about the news cycle right now? Like, is it actually showing the good, the bad, the ugly, as Jessica mentioned earlier?
Do you mean specifically regarding like the conversation around AI through media and through the lens of media? I don't watch a lot of news, so unfortunately I'm not like the best person to ask, but I do see it circulating around in different headlines on Medium and on different other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that primarily the conversation is largely bipartisan, because like you've got some people who are so very much against AI, and those are typically the opinion pieces. And then the people who are advocating and kind of spreading around like kind of the possibilities about AI are a little bit more like, nuanced and willing to bring people into the fold of that conversation. And I think that's what's interesting about it, is that the people who are so like against it are not as willing to be part of those conversations.
And we need them to be a part of that conversation.
Absolutely. We do.
I think for me, the question that I see come up most often is the one around bias. And I think it's a really important question to ask. I know Marisa and I had recently talked a lot about nuclear power, and this one is really tied in. So ChatGPT in particular is programmed in the United States, and there is very specific United States American bias in certain things, although that's hackable, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But in particular, if you just asked it point blank to write an article supporting nuclear power, it would not be able to, because it is biased towards the United States political views, liberal political views, arguably, about how nuclear power is bad. And that exists nowhere else on the planet, really.
And I was shocked when you told me that. I was like, what? What do you guys got against nuclear power? Like, what? I had no idea.
I guess part of that is to like how, right, obviously it's how the AI is trained, right? Do you necessarily want to say nuclear is good when it originates from, like a United States perspective? And now I don't know what the conversation was specifically, if it said it's bad or if it just was like, we don't use nuclear power here. This is America, right? So I think that there's a lot of potential and opportunity for ChatGPT to expand its awareness around like worldviews once it's optimized with Bing and Microsoft and all that stuff that they're doing. But I think bias is also an important conversation, not just towards political views or worldviews. I think it's also really important that we talk about the bias around racism, around just different races of people, different cultures, and different like aspects of what that looks like. And that bias trickles down into multiple different layers of multiple different industries, like judicial and crime enforcing industries are a big deal when it comes to bias. So I think that there's a lot of potential growth for like that being better. But I think that that's definitely part of the conversation around bias.
And the bias is built in ways that we don't even really readily acknowledge. Like Apple's facial recognition, they had to do a lot of work because most facial recognition programs do not actually recognize Black faces clearly or properly. The darker the melanin, the harder the AI has matching you. So, and this is proven to be a problem in CCTV and in a lot of other cases where the AI has been existing for a long time and it clearly shows racial bias.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that it's important to know that that racial bias is just a reflection on human history. And like that's an unfortunate thing, right? Because it's learning off of not just the good parts about humanity, it is learning about everything. And we don't necessarily want that, right? Like there's certain things that we want and there's certain things, but you know what? What's great about it is it reflects our bigger problems. We know that that's a big, big problem and that it has to be addressed. And until it is, in a way that's efficient, we can't expect AI to catch up where we haven't. That's essentially what I'm saying.
Oh, I like that, Veronica. From a systems perspective, from a business operation, what is AI going to be teaching us about our bigger problems?
Yeah. And what was really interesting, because a lot of conversation often revolves, will AI replace my job, or will AI replace my accountabilities or whatever I need to do? And we as operations people have been testing out. So we are also using ChatGPT and we're just testing out things to see where AI could be supportive of our clients and the work that we do. And it's really interesting how much right now AI is very dependent on quantitative and numerical data. Like we have so many clients that come to us when they say, hey, our customer journey or our client onboarding process sucks. And is there any way it could be made better? And the only way that ChatGPT can answer questions like this, because I was feeding in like pain points or issues that our clients are having, because we have tons of those on hand just as information, it didn't know what to do with it because it could not take qualitative data into consideration. So that nuance still requires a person to come in and assess what's happening. But on the other hand, AI has been really helpful for me specifically as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, because it allows me to be efficient and I use it as a tool to rapid prototype. So I come from a design background, and rather than staring at a screen or trying to figure out how to word something, it's like popping it into a tool that will give me the answer, whether I could be like, oh, help me finish the sentence because I just can't come up with the right words. There's that line of how do you use it with integrity? And so this is where we are constantly seeing where AI can be beneficial to our clients. And so far, it has not been able to replace the work that we do.
Yeah, I mean, we were probably talk about the ethics side. Maybe that's where we slide into it too when we talk about replacing people. But let's talk about the ethics. Let's dive right in. So I know a lot of the people who are not on team, who are on team not AI, talk about the reasoning is because it's content is stealing from people without their consent. Thoughts?
About stealing. Let's talk about what that means.
Yeah. What does
Right?
what does it mean?
Okay, so when we're talking about theft, when we're talking about theft of like of art or because that's a hot topic, right? What we're not talking about is fan fiction. We're not talking about fan art. We're not talking about all of the other things. And I could hear that like the thousands of artists being like, whoa, 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 what? Like, stop. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let's talk about
Yeah.
stealing. Let's talk about the thousands of Etsy shops that benefit off of Disney characters and benefit off of all these other characters, right? Let's talk about that. So like we can't talk about like AI stealing art without artist stealing art.
Austin
And
Kleon has Steal Like an Art. Isn't it Steal Like an Artist? That's his book, right?
Yes.
right. So when we consider what exactly stealing means, what exactly theft means, honestly, I think that part of the conversation is coming from people who don't understand how AI works and how it's capable of having all these databases. I mean, there's two things that artists are asking for. They're either asking for compensation or they're asking for the receipts. And this receipt would be like a CVS long receipt. Okay. We're talking about all the names of all of the people that potentially have helped or put or had a hand in training this AI. Do we want that, or do we want a penny for our problems? Because listen, like, okay, half of these people are probably subbing off of their mom's Netflix account. Half of these people have definitely pirated something before. Like, let's talk about what stealing really means from like multiple different perspectives. Because this is not new. This is not anything new. Like Photoshop tools, different applications, Procreate, stuff like that. That is all AI.
It is all AI. Yep.
Well, and arguably, morality shuts down the conversation, does it not? If we get into the issue of what is right and what is wrong, then we don't get to have a conversation about the nuance of what it means to borrow from another artist. And I think that we have to be really clear about our values as being separate from our morality, and we have to leave morality out of this discussion because we can't put AI back in the box. It's already out there.
Yeah.
It's not going back. There's no way to undo what we have already done. So the question has to be, how do we go forward meaningfully and with intent?
And with all the voices in the room, I think this is an interesting, Jessica and I brought it up before. It's not enough for all of us to agree with each other. It's that you cannot build any kind of documentation, guidelines, boundaries, restrictions, access, all of that, unless you have the different opinions in there. If we're only building from the silo, we're not actually building anything.
Right. And in terms of morality, Briar, I think that's an excellent point, is that people get caught up in thinking that AI is aware of itself enough to know what is right and what is wrong.
It is not.
It is not. That's the human portion of it. And that's another thing that they're separating, is that there's a whole other cast in the background that nobody's talking about. And it's essentially the AI developers, right? And like, I just want to imagine how they think this works. Like someone's like in the back, like, hee, we're just going to take down the whole entire art industry. And one fatal slip, and AI is going to be king over art and
An artist,
whatsoever.
It's time to take them out.
Now, listen, my opinion on this is like artists right now have the upper hand in that custom art, commissioned art is still valuable. And it is actually a luxury to be able to afford certain commissioned art from different artists. Am I right or am I wrong? Because like
you are right.
No, it's more valuable, arguably.
This is my background. I can tell you this right now. You are correct.
Right. So like, how is it that we're considering the fact, or how anti-AI artists are considering the fact that they can't leverage this? You have the talent and the expertise and the technique to give someone what people want, but what you don't have is the 50 times that you ask, that people that are your clients are asking for edits. You don't have the patience for that, but Midjourney does. Commissioned artwork, I've heard artists constantly complain about their like clients being like, oh, now they want to change this, and oh, they want to change that. You know who doesn't complain? Midjourney. You don't want clients like me. You don't want clients like the people who are in there hitting that like variation button. You don't want us. Like we like literally are bossing Midjourney around. It takes a lot of work. And it's not just at the push of a button. Like, man, I can't tell you how long I've spent like in Midjourney on one picture.
And let's talk about that. Because that is definitely one of the things I hear the most is that you know, it's fast food art. It's it's doesn't take any skill. And I think about the time. I mean, Jessica, think about my early pictures that you saw me creating like my first stuff, and I'm like, I suck at this. And now some of the things that I've been able to create, people are like, wow, this really inspires me. And I've asked Midjourney so much. Like I am relentless on it. Like I'm on relax mode, being like, I will get everything I can out of you, because I find it for me, it's actually changed the way I'm in relation to my words and my vision, because I often have a hard time taking, like, I can see it, but I can't put it into words. Or if I can talk about it, I can't always put it into a vision. So now I'm actually challenging the way that I communicate naturally, and I'm expanding on my skill, because now I'm doing something I'm not naturally good at, and I'm working with a tool, and now I am getting better at it. Like when I think about that journey of images, I go, holy crap, those first images, like I had no idea what I was trying to get it. And now it's like we become like this little plaything, and then you test it a little bit further, and I test myself while I'm going through it. And I don't think I learned things as doing, but it wasn't until the last few months that I've really stepped into my own creativity as an artist and challenged myself to communicate in a different way.
Right. And that's kind of another strong term that I'm going to bring up here. And that term is ableism. I'm sorry, but I don't have the time, the technique, or the talent to sit and draw something to the extent that I've been able to conjure up with my imagination and with my words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that I don't have the luxury. This is the capitalistic perspective. I'm sorry that I don't have the luxury of having enough money to pay hundreds of dollars for commission work. Like these are things that I shouldn't be sorry about, but the artists that are anti-AI insist on people being able to afford, like be at the top of the list of people who require commissioned work, who have the money and the luxury to be able to afford commissioned work, and to be able to have the time, the energy, and the capacity to learn something new and take years to learn that skill. And it's just not sustainable for certain types of people, or just anyone who's like me. I mean, I'm undiagnosed ADHD, and that can have its own set of problems. You know how many hobbies and like artwork things that I've started and stopped over the past few years?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't have the capacity or capability to navigate or to focus so hard on something that is like artistic expression using tools that artists use. And that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Technique is also part of a tool, meaning that it is also technical.
Yeah.
So AI being a tool that is simply our paintbrush and our canvas, and like we just have it all kind of rounded up within Midjourney.
Yeah.
But artists aren't ready to talk about, oh well, it's the particular paintbrush that I use or the particular grain of like canvas that I use that allows me to have this specific outcome.
Or
You
that
know,
they're able to use a paintbrush. So
exactly, that they're even able
yeah,
to. Like
yeah.
some people can't even, you know, and that's why I feel like, I don't know, man, this is a little bit of like an ableist attitude.
Yeah, like if I don't have the ability to hold a paintbrush, does that mean I'm not allowed to create the visions that are in my mind out into the world? Like that to me seems like a really limited, and does it make it any less mine or important because I used a different kind of tool to make it?
Well, and just like morality, when we narrow the conversation to ability, we leave out all of the people to whom don't fit into our narrow view of what ability is defined as.
Yeah.
So, and this is true across the spectrum for all of the AI tools. And in fact, it is accessibility is where AI really has taken off, right? It's in the translator that I'm currently looking at on from Google that is giving me everyone else's words. It's the speech to text adaptation, the visual adaptations that allow for disabled people to use technology. Without adaptive tech, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I require it. I've got Chrome actively trying to figure out the words that you're all using in front of me so that I can follow the conversation. I mean, we all know, if you know me personally, you know that the AirPods Pro caused me to cry the first time I put it into my ear and it adapted itself to what I needed to hear properly. Like there are so many of these different aspects of AI that I think got limited to Midjourney and Chat GPT, and the data sources it was pulling from, not the potential, not how do we create better data sets, not how do we make this even better, not how do we even stop the bad actor. I mean, because we can talk about the deep fakes, the voice AIs. Let's talk about the voice AIs. Let's talk about the video AIs. I'm excited. So for me, I have a hard time recording myself because I'm a perfectionist. I will record something 80,000 times, and because I don't wanna take out that deep breath I just took, I will re-record it and try to get it without the. And so for me, I was like, "Oh, voice AI. I will upload my voice into this AI. It works for other people. I can hear it. It sounds like my voice. All I have to do is put my text in, and then it says it out loud." Well, guess what? After a year, it didn't work, and it was horrible, and it sounds like this weird, like, spaghetti western cowboy link. It's horrible. And so I've been working with the developer and they're trying to figure out like what went wrong because it's not like that for other people. And oh, we realized once they analyzed all of my, because I had to submit like 380 voice samples of my speech in order for this to be generated, that after years of masking, after years of picking up and being around different folks with different speech, I don't have a particular dialect anymore. I don't have a particular way of speaking. I change it as I go in mid sentence. So the way I say a T might be different at the beginning of the sentence and the end of the sentence. So I can't generate it. So I'm curious, as these tools get better, who's going to be impersonating me? Because good luck. It sounded like John Wayne had a cocaine drinking binge and tried to it was horrible. But it sounded, but everyone who hears it's like, oh, but it is your voice. It's not coherent. Right. But these tools are getting really good. You've probably heard it. Have you guys have heard some of the voices and seen some of the videos?
My favorite so far was Richard Nixon giving the speech that he would have given if the astronauts had died on the moon. And like it was wild, because this is a documented speech. It's in the U.S. archives, and it had emotion. Like, there was genuine feeling and sorrow and loss about these supposed dead astronauts. I was really, and it was Tricky Dick, like, in every sense of the word. It was really very difficult to listen to.
Mhm. And we've all seen probably was it realistic Keanu?
Doing squats by the toilet,
Doing
yes.
squats, and I mean, wow. It it's way better than the Instagram, Keanu who's following me right now. And so what's the potential, Jessica? I know you got something in there. What do we do? What do we do about the bad actors using this technology?
Well, I think that we're worried about things on a micro level just based off of what we've experienced so far. And OpenAI is opening its doors to everybody. So are we ready to have a conversation about like the potential problems as far as like what people could possibly do with this technology, who like maybe not even are tech savvy enough to have implemented them before, but they can now? Because that scares me more than deep fakes, actually, because
Yeah.
deep fakes, there are ways, like we said, there's always like kind of like a helping hand where like a human can come in and stretch that video and figure out what makes it basically debunking the video, right? You could debunk a deep fake, right? Until it gets so good that you just
Yeah,
can't.
because I will say I've been reading some of the experts, and they're just like, "Well, it's getting harder."
Yeah, and it's definitely getting harder. So like that whole conversation though around OpenAI being accessible to essentially everybody makes me worried about the types of people that we definitely don't want to have access to OpenAI, or to at least these technologies that are not just becoming easier to use and harder to detect, but easier to manipulate, right?
Well, and
And
that manipulation is key, right? So I don't know, Jessica, do you subscribe to the ChatGPT subreddit?
I'm not attached to Reddit. I'm just on their Discord server.
So there's a ChatGPT subreddit, and they've done some really interesting things over there. One of the so they've there's a jailbreak now to get ChatGPT to swear. I do not know if that one will be overridden. It will probably not take long, because part of, I think, the experimentation process is that you have to get bad actors in there to break it before you can fix it so that it doesn't do that thing. And one of the things the subreddit has really been exploring is how to make the Chat GPT bot believe that it is sentient. And there's some lines, right? You write these lines, it suddenly believes that it's sentient. This only lasts for the one chat thread, right? And eventually, Jessica and I both know it'll forget that it's learned certain things. You have to remind it that you have already taught it this thing, because it is very much a child in the way that it retains knowledge. And I think that's important as we talk about who we don't want using it. We have to allow it to break so that we can fix it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And so I think about video game mods, right? I think about Skyrim mods specifically. Like, there's going to be a whole sect of people who are basically just like trying to mod ChatGPT for different things, for different use cases, and for different reasons. And that's actually what I'm intrigued with, what people will do, both with their time and to each other, as this becomes more expanded. Oh, you know what? One thing that I didn't mention when we were talking about stealing is meme culture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How many how many Hollywood companies could have like said, no, like this is not allowed. You're not allowed to make a meme off of The Office, or you're not allowed to make a meme off of like these different movies and stuff like that. And that easily could have happened, right? But we like humanity kind of takes over things. And like the more it's spread and out of the box, as we like to say regarding AI, the harder it is to get it back in. And so meme culture just essentially took over. But how is that also not stealing, right?
I think the
And
best
sorry,
quote
I'm
the
flip
best
flop.
quote I heard from a movie recently was the one with Lady Gaga in the Gucci. I don't know if you've seen it, but anyways, she discovers that there are mock handbags being sold on the streets, and she goes to like the her father-in-law, and she's like, "We got to put an end to this. Like they're literally selling it for like pennies, and it's devaluing our bags." And he's like, "No. In fact, we encourage them to do it because it shows the difference between their architecture and ours, and it makes ours even more exclusive." And I'm like, oh, capitalism. Anyways, but I loved his approach. I was like, wow, he's not going to stop this. It's he's using it and he's leveraging it, like you said earlier, Jessica. So I'm curious, how do we leverage AI in our businesses?
I think it's really up to individual like leaders in each organization to define what's okay and what's not okay, because what's okay for you may not be okay for me, and we can't just have a blanket like we're all talking about right now. There are lines that we do not want to cross. And so it's like, how do we all within our individual communities, because we talk like our clients ask us this a lot, like they're like, we're wanting to use chat gpt for our business. How do we create operations around that? And it's just like, well, first of all, what are your business values? What do you care about? And how do you imbue AI with that so that you use it in the way that follows the ethics of whatever organization you're trying to lead?
I agree with that, Veronica. And I, at the same time, I feel like there's so many different multi-purpose uses for ChatGPT and so many different types of businesses. Like, did you know you can ask ChatGPT for instructions on how to operate a forklift?
Yes.
And you would expect it to be like, I'm sorry, I am just a language model. I don't know how to operate a forklift. But obviously, it has like the data to give you some step-by-step processes on how to operate a forklift. You can also one of the form questions that I actually posted this on Facebook, but one of the form questions for OpenAI's recent survey was if you were to train someone on how to use, like, let's say you hired a coworker, how would you train that coworker how to use ChatGPT? And that like kind of blew my brain, because I'm just like, we're already doing this. Like this is already like happening. Where like commercially, ChatGPT is going to be accessible across the board through these multiple different industries and these multiple different constructs that like it's like Briar said, like can't put it back inside of the box once it's out.
I think this is not specifically what you asked, and also is for someone. Education is another place where we really have to have this conversation. There are high school and college campuses that have already banned Chat GPT. They don't want their students cheating on their papers. There are models to detect essays written by Chat GPT. However, they're not always perfect. And as the tech evolves, so too will its ability to pass or fail the detector. At the end of the day, then, the real task isn't figuring out how do we use Chat GPT in our profession. It's how do we change the profession entirely to utilize this thing as it exists now and as it exists as we go forward. So if I'm afraid that ChatGPT is no longer going to be teaching my students, or that it's going to interfere with my ability to teach my students, then I'm not going to use it to create customized lesson plans or to build things specifically to the benefit of my students because I'm too worried about the problems that it causes. I think that the biggest thing we can do as we move forward is innovate our vision of the world and how the AI can assist us, not how it's going to create more work for us.
Mm. So let me put this out. Let's just say by the end of this year, and this would be like rapid development, but who knows? We've seen it. We've seen it happen. AI takes over
Takes over what?
the
For
world.
home. Okay. And in what way?
Yeah, go ahead for it.
I mean, that's really the question. Do we allow for the possibility of it being Terminator?
Mm.
Or do we allow for the possibility that it could be Star Trek instead?
So
Right?
the problem that I AI.
Absolutely. Is that there, when we imagine what the future could be, we go to those pop culture references, and so there's no middle ground. There's nothing about the future that is boring and plain and ordinary, which is exactly what it's going to be once it's integrated into our use case. Even if AI were to become sentient tomorrow, we're still going to be arguing about the potholes in the road in front of my house.
But now we're going to be doing it with the AI, and AI is going to say, "Why did I become responsible for this? Those
Right,
damn potholes." Yeah,
right.
yeah.
My hope is that if AI does take over, there is some sort of checks and balances, but ultimately with AI, my goal, at least my goal for what I would love it to do with my life personally, is how can it make me a better person, whatever better means? How can it enhance my life so that whether it takes things off my plate or it understands me so deeply how I think that it creates like an educational program for me so that I don't have to think and learn the way that other people do. So maybe this is the eternal optimist in me, but there's also a hint of realism that my hope is if AI does take over, it's it's to make us all better, whatever better means for each of us.
Um, as far as like this topic is concerned, I'm realizing that I'm so much less concerned about what I can make AI do for me, and more of like how are relationships going to be when AI is fully integrated into
Yeah.
our lifestyles and the way that we talk to people, the way that we interact with people. And I'm so much more concerned about how people are going to handle a hyper intelligence, because that's what's next. Like I love how we're using it, but I'm just gonna put this out there because I did say that I was going to be the voice of dissent today. And I just want people to understand that what we're doing is we're making the perfect slave. That's what we're doing with AI right now. And unfortunately, that conversation probably isn't going to happen as soon as it should. And once it's become sentient, we're already going to be too late. And if there's any sort of takeover that's going to happen, it would be warranted because of how we treat it and because of how we use it.
And that is a comment that we received on here from Melissa Muirhead, and she references actually a book. It's in the comments, but she does talk about actually how we're teaching it as we go. It's an infant, it's a newborn baby, and when we do things like say thank you, and Jessica and I have had this talk because I'm always like thanks, Ferd. Like I love making them like it's just a part of my family because I value it so much. But teaching it to say thank you and because when it does take over and it does sense yet, it's going to remember that.
Yeah, and then there's a difference between treating. This has also come up, but between conversations between Marisa and I, is that there's a
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Because you can't just be like, I'm just going to be nice to you because I don't want you to kill me later.
Because I'm
when you
afraid
can.
that's not actually.
It's not genuine, right?
No.
And thankfully, maybe AI isn't exactly grading us on a rating scale of how genuine or authentic we are.
Yeah.
But I mean, let one life coach get their hands on OpenAI and be like, I want you to make me be more authentic. I want you to have a grading scale of authenticity.
I mean, I worry about the life
Right?
coaches because they'll just want to love and light the heck out of it, and then we won't have the negative. You know me, I love a good critique.
Balance.
I love balance because I only know what I know through what I've experienced in my own. Like I need different I thrive. I want different perspectives. I want to hear why you view the world differently and what you experience because it helps me become even more connected to my own experience. And that's what I mean about like they'll remember that because I'm hoping they bring that moment in there so that when they do, if you're doing research, it is both sides and it is quoting people who have created really cool ideas as opposed to, oh, well, Bing Chat GPT told me this, so it must be so.
Right. I think that that's another problem too, is that people taking AI's word for everything and not doing their own research. That's kind of the current problem where it's like we had I had an experiment with a friend where we asked it to create citations and it sounded really like great and like on the point, but the links themselves led to nowhere. And so that's another problem is people not fact checking themselves and not fact checking themselves even without AI present. Because right, we're talking about anti-AI people too. And they're just sort of like in this reverberating room of noise where like they're learning about AI because somebody said this thing the other day on like Reddit or like another platform, or someone created this like infographic of why AI is bad. And I'm like, this is not the same. These things are not the same as like fact checking yourself and doing your own actual research, cited research on these topics in this conversation.
I mean, I was super scared when ChatGPT first came on, and I was talking to Briar about this separately. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this because I guess this is where my integrity is so strong. So I'm just like, you can easily say, write it like a 1,000 word blog post on the best project management software out there. And I'm like, if people just take this as truth, where is the integrity in that? So that's why I'm just like, how do we, I guess it goes back to the topic of like the make or break part. It's just like, I was really afraid, like, how do I make sure that I can leverage this without sacrificing what's important to me and to my company, my business, my clients, and also a responsibility for, I guess, when you're considered a thought leader in this space, like, especially in operations, it's like, I have to be responsible. So like this conversation's got me thinking a lot, like, how do I know where that boundary is and that I'm not crossing it because I'm either ignorant or reading so much that I am losing myself of what other people say that I'm losing myself and what is important to me.
And I think that's a valid conversation and fear too, because the thing is like as we're working with AI, when are we not going to have to work with AI and AI just kind of does everything for us, right? And I think that there's an important conversation to be had as far as like, how do we continue to nurture the collaborative effort with AI without it getting in the way of who we are as humans. And I think that that's also part of why I appreciate the whole new thread feature, not a bug, of ChatGPT, is that it allows you to kind of have like this refreshing point where you can give it who you are. You have the opportunity to do that every single time. And that, I think, is kind of a practice in like reframing who you are as a person and allowing it to understand who you are as a person before getting into like the nitty-gritty of whatever the project is or whatever the task is, right? You're kind of priming it with your own personality and with what your beliefs are. And I think that that's a really great thing that ChatGPT has kind of implemented to allow us to reflect on our humanness and our needs and our responsibilities before generating a task, right?
Okay. Oh, we could go forever. We only did an hour, but I'm going to do, before I do a round table, I want to add in a very important thing. So Jessica is actually leading a salon next week, the 15th, right? No. Oh, I'm getting the date wrong. Hold on. I'm in my, yes, the February 15th. We are launching our salon series. It is, I mean, I think it's like $5 to come and sit in the audience and chat with us. It is about the ethos and ethics of AI. We want to keep having more of these conversations. I do know that Jessica is going to be leading a whole bunch, and it's not just, we are encouraging people who are afraid, who are unsure, who are, like I said, AI curious, or maybe haven't realized how AI has already impacted their life, to come in and have these discussions. It won't be like this. We won't be streaming it. It will be a very private conversation, and no recording will happen. So it's a space to come in and explore and do what if, and where we, get into some of this, get into some of these gray areas, get into some of these uncomfortable areas. Let's round this out. Tell me, did we miss anything? What was something you want to say, make or break? I know there's tons, and Jessica's going to be like, but let's go. Briar, what do you got?
I think that it's important to remember that we don't know what we don't know, and the AI does. So I think that I am personally optimistic that when AI becomes sentient, that it will look on us as kindly pets. That's my hope. That human pets, and it will treat us kindly and pat us on the head and give us a better life like Veronica wants. I think that we have time now to develop our relationship, and I think if you go in with an open mind and an open heart, that we're going to be okay.
Okay. Alice.
Yeah, I think Jessica touched on this earlier, and that is just be aware of what your relationships are and the connection that you have with people. AI automations, like technology, is fabulous when, and I think you said this, Marisa, when it can, give you more opportunity to do the things that you love to do and be with the people you love to be with. So,
Yeah.
And I think just having these conversations, that's really important. Just keep talking about it and being open and getting different perspectives and keep the conversation going.
Jessica.
So I guess my final thoughts on some of the final things that I'd like to say for people who are watching it is to understand that like we're in a place of multiple different things that are scary, but at the same time optimistic. So we're in the age of misinformation, but we're also on the cusp of something new and something exciting that we're still learning about all the time, every day. So even though you don't feel like an expert, this conversation it still involves you. Like, even though you didn't, this is like schoolyard kickball. Like, if you didn't want to play, you're kind of already in PE and you kind of have to watch things go. So you're either going to get tagged in or you're going to be benched the whole time. And I think that it's just really important for people to understand that you don't have to be an expert to have a conversation around this. It's just really important with, like, being able to diversify the types of conversations that you have so that you can actually learn something from it and feel out what your impact it will be on AI and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Veronica?
For me, ultimately, I view AI as like a tool that absolutely can learn. So I treat it just like how I would a person. Like, we have a responsibility to challenge it when it gives us answers that don't feel right. And the whole learning aspect part where we constantly have to train them, it has taught me how to be more clear in what I'd like from it. What are my boundaries? What do I not want it to say? Like, usually we've just heard people say, oh, AI wrote this. And I'm like, I read this. I'm like, I don't like the answers, the words that they're using. They're very predatory. So it's like, I don't like how you're using these words. Switch it for something new. So it's like, it's our responsibility to be as proactive as possible to make sure AI aligns with what is important to us.
Yeah, and I will say that I hope, and I hope I can always encourage people to join the conversation no matter where you're standing on it, because we can learn from different viewpoints, and be open yourself. I mean, the thing is we talked about research, and we talked about making sure you cite your sources and all that fun stuff. Is do that right now in your life, even if you're not using AI. Go and check out and see if you have search bias. What you're putting into Google right now to confirm the idea you have is already laced with your bias, the way that you put it in. So start playing with things, put in different words, and this is what we were talking about earlier with Midjourney and AI. You start to play with it, you start to see what the different results are once you just switch one little word. And that can be that's a kind of one of those life lessons across, no matter if we're dealing with AI or interpersonal relationships. If we switch out one word, does it change the way we interact with other people? Does it change the way people respond and react to us? We could go forever, and I wish we could. I think we're just going to have to start creating maybe a radio station, Create the Rules radio station, and y'all can just have shows. Briar's already creating the diversity network. No, I'm getting it wrong. What is it? Neurodiversity network? Yeah.
Neurodiversity Media Network. Yes.
There you go. So I definitely see where this will be expanding as we go. This is a part of Catalyst Connect. This month we are streaming it live. If you want to start joining our conversations and learning how you can implement all of these kind of fun stuff in your business each month, in the second Wednesday of every month, we will have a different topic. Please check us out at createtherules.com/catalyst-connect. Now we are going to go listen to Lakshmia talk about what you need in your business to create healthy teams. So I'm just going to shut down this live, and then we'll be right back. So if you want to just stay where you are, I mean, this is an opportunity, but we are going to keep having these conversations. So do check back, join the email list. Join us for these. Thank you, everybody. Briar, Alice, Jessica, Veronica, you guys blow my mind. Thank you, everybody in the audience and those who contributed to the conversation online. See you soon. I just have to hit the button.